Hello, everybody. Happy Easter. If you're celebrating today, happy Passover. If you're celebrating Passover today, and if you're not celebrating anything today, just celebrate you and your greatness. All right. Thank you so much for joining. I know it's a holiday on many ends. So if we get just few people to tune in, I'm so grateful to share this Sunday evening with you, especially given that it is a holiday. So, and if you are tuning in, but you don't really have the time to watch, know that you can always catch the replay anytime thereafter. So if you used to watch on YouTube, once premiere is over, I think YouTube pulls videos and checks them for copyright and then releases them. So you can totally watch it tomorrow or anytime thereafter. Again, thank you so much for joining. Hey, James. Hello. Good evening. Good evening. Thank you. Well, thank you for joining and happy holidays. What are you if you're celebrating anything, right? Happy holidays, happy Easter, happy Passover, happy Sunday. So, on this note, we're going to start with the latest news that did happen today. Also, the quick news that I did not report on yet, given that I send my daily briefing, which I encourage you to subscribe to. It's absolutely free. You can decide to support. If you do, I'm very grateful for you. And by the way, click the like and share and subscribe to this channel so we can get connected more. Monday through Saturday, I post news clips, no commentary. And then on Sunday, I go live like now and we discuss the news. So, honestnetwork.com, that's where you're going to get your daily briefing Monday through Friday. And then Saturday, we have a Canada edition. And so, since today is Sunday, we're going to start with some quick news that did happen in between. And so, first, of course, today's Easter, and former President Biden posted this photo with his family, wishing everybody who is celebrating today a peaceful and joyful Easter. And it's a wonderful, I mean, look, the man dresses up for his family photo. That's, the decency that we miss. And weirdly, once I posted this, even on Blue Sky, people started being very mean, saying that I'm effed up in my head, that this is a genocide Joe, that how dare I, post him because he gave us Trump, blah, blah, blah. So, on this note, when I post something, I post it in my best opinion or my best decision to present the news to you. Okay? I'm not part of Biden family. But I can also tell you that you cannot see the world in black or white, especially these days. Biden did not give us Trump. What he failed in, and this is openly, I can tell him that if I get a chance to, or I can tell you right now, what he did not do, hence he failed in, is preventing Trump from gaining absolute power. Because the absolute power was actually granted to President Biden by the Supreme Court. He could have used the same power to decide that this is in the best, not in the best interest of the country. He could just cancel it out. He could also investigate the election. He did not do that. He could also investigate the MAGA movement. He did not do that. And so on and so forth. These were his decisions. He did not give us Trump, but what he did not do is protect the Constitution, given that Project 2025 was widely available. And now we're just going step by step, page by page in this project, and everything that we're facing is there. So this is not an unknown series. This is series by the book. When you watch something like Bridgerton or whatever floats your boat, and you're like, oh my God, what's going to happen in the next chapter? There are books, right? There are books here. It's just adapted to the real life. So that's on that. On genocide, Joe, two things I want to tell you. First, read and learn history. And you may say that I'm effed up in my head or whatever, but I was in the meeting with the president of Palestine when I was working as a diplomat at the UN Security Council. I was in the close briefing with him when he said that although Hamas was elected, they will never leave. They will dismantle the Constitution. They will change the entire order. They will gain absolute power. Rings the bell? and they will never leave. And they are a terrorist organization. I was in that meeting where he cried, physically cried, and asked US to occupy or do anything. At that point, Obama was not interested in occupying Palestine, or, this is not really our right to go occupied countries, although some presidents decide to do so up until today. And so once you start learning what did happen and how Hamas came into power, they were elected, what happened after, and I went in such detail in my newsletters, but also in my live streams specifically, explaining how Hamas is integrated into the Palestine community, because the fathers and brothers are working for Hamas because there's no other way for survival. There's no other way to earn money to pay for your family. And so they joined Hamas. And so at this point, so citizens are protecting those killers and terrorists because they're also partially their family. Also, they're hiding underneath hospitals and schools. So if you're so integrated, you're so eager to defend something, learn more about it. And so you can apply your power and your curiosity and your genuine interest into fighting for what's right into the right direction. Fight Hamas. Don't fight Genocide Joe. So, also, you don't like Joe Biden. What do you have now? What do you have now? Because you protested against people, voting for Kamala Harris because you called her Genocide Harris, right? Or whatever that thing was. What do you have now? That Gaza is openly being branded as the new Mar-a-Lago by the sea, which Mar-a-Lago is kind of by the sea anyway. But the new version of Trump hotels and Trump dreams, he put a video on that. He granted $3 billion worth of war fight abilities, bombs, to Israel. To do what? What do you think you do with that stuff? What do you do with very, very heavy artillery? You flatten cities and countries. And that's what's happening. And that's what's up. So I really encourage you to avoid living in a life or living the life that's driven by your emotions, because it's very difficult. If you just react on everything and you're just always anxious, calm yourself down, read something. Now, if you decide to harass me, yes, I will block you. And yes, you can find me, of course, on the website, send me an email and all of this. And you say, this is your fundamental right to harass me. No, honey boo-boo. This is not your right to harass me. Your right is to consume the news I report on or not consume. I do it for free. I do it daily. I do it 24/7. And if you do not agree, you can always unsubscribe, never subscribe, and you don't have to announce it since we're not at the airport. But I will protect my well-being, because only when I'm okay, I can continue doing what I'm doing, which is appreciated by our 6 million readers in 112 countries who are subscribed to our newsletter. I have a company to run, I have news to report on. So I don't have time to engage with you and fix your emotional disability to handle geopolitical problems. If you want to have a conversation, we can totally do so. But harassing people is not okay. All right? So, on this note, what did President Trump do today? He tweeted a sort of a happy Easter message, which was on brand. And here it is. Happy Easter to all, including the radical left lunatics who are fighting and scamming so hard to bring murderers, drug lords, dangerous prisoners, mentally insane, and well-known MS-13 gang members and wife beaters back into our country. Happy Easter also to weak and ineffective judges and law enforcement officials who are allowing the sinister attack on our nation to continue, an attack so violent that it will never be forgotten. Sleepy Joe Biden purposely allowed millions of criminals, blah, 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 blah. So this is sort of a happy Easter. And here I have a question to all the MAGA folks, because he didn't wish you a happy Easter. He did wish happy Easter to all of us, I guess. So you're forgotten again. And then he decided also to post this tweet later in the day. He said the businessmen who criticize tariffs are bad at business, but really bad at politics. Wait a second. Who criticize tariffs are bad at business, but really bad at politics. They don't understand or realize that I'm the greatest friend that American capitalism has ever had. And here I agree. Trump is the greatest friend to him, to himself. Every single deal he makes for our nation, there's always something that benefits him directly. Every single executive order has some sort of benefit tied to him personally. So, in terms of capitalism and his egoistic ideas, he's perfect. Of course, he's reacting to economists and business leaders saying that, what he does is not okay because the tariffs will cost us a lot. $50 billion just if you take the tourism industry, which obviously will hit the blue states the most, right? New York, California, but also things like Florida. So, and so he's reacting and reactive. And again, this is a good example of somebody who's driven by emotions. And so he reacts constantly. But again, this feeds him, that drives him, right? Being hated, making people fight with each other. This is where he gets energy. Some people do not. Normal people actually do not. They actually prosper in a peaceful and happy environment, right? And welcoming environment. So, and that's the difference. Now, also some breaking news today. Let me check some. James says, and we're only on chapter 1. Yeah, exactly. Don't consume if you don't like it. Exactly, James. Thank you. Thank you. All right. So other breaking news for tonight were that Hegseth, our Secretary of Defense, said to have shared attack details in, again, second signal chat. Now, what's different now is that actually people outside the government are getting those messages. And so the defense secretary sent sensitive information about strikes in Yemen to an encrypted group chat that included his wife and brother. People familiar with the matter said. Now, let's not forget that his wife is a former producer at Fox News. So you're leaking everything to the media, literally. There's not such a thing as a former media person. People have contacts and people sell also information, make money with it. So how about that? Now, also 3 senior Pentagon officials, Dan Caldwell, Darren Selnick, and Colin Carroll, released a joint statement denying any wrongdoing following their ouster this week over an alleged internal leak. So all of them had to resign. So currently we don't have the number 2 at the Pentagon, or 3 or 4. So Caldwell, once a top advisor to Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth, was reportedly escorted out of the Pentagon after being accused of an unauthorized disclosure. The officials criticized the lack of transparency, saying they were never told the details of the investigation and denied leaking any sensitive information. Caldwell, a Marine Corps veteran and known critic of extensive U.S. foreign military engagement, had played a key role in national security decisions, including strike preparations against the Houthis. Their removal appears unrelated to the broader purge of top Pentagon brass under Hegseth's leadership, which has included several high-profile firings. So, but also, hey, Patty, love you back. Happy holidays, whatever you're celebrating today. If you're celebrating Easter, happy Easter. If you're celebrating Passover or anything else, happy holidays. So, but don't you worry. We have a new hire at the Pentagon. I hope you're happy. And so here he is. This fella is Royce Chamberlain. It's a good last name. He said, I'm excited and honored to announce I have been appointed to the office of the Secretary of Defense at the DoD, helping ensure our country is viewed as a force not to be reckoned with. And if he looks quite young to you, don't you worry. He has work experience. Unfortunately, this work experience comes from McDonald's. He promoted McDonald's as a sort of a thing like a Ronald McDonald lookalike type of thing. What a career boost. Going nuclear. God bless us. Now, also other news that are messed up is that now reportedly FDA is making plans to end its routine food safety inspections, sources say. So anytime you feel nauseous, well, bad choice then. May we survive this 4 years or whatever this will be. So also, thousands of protesters rallied in Washington and other cities across U.S. Yesterday, New York City was a big protest as well on Saturday to voice their opposition to President Donald Trump's policies and deportations, government firings, and the wars in Gaza and Ukraine. And I would say, action, his lack of action in Ukraine and lots of action in Gaza, right? We stopped the aid and we increased the bombings against Gaza. So, Genocide Joe, where's that crowd? Also, as you may have heard, JD Vance traveled to Italy, which really sounded weird. So on Thursday, Prime Minister of Italy, Giorgia Meloni, she was at the White House at the Oval Office. Then next day in Italy, at this time in Rome, JD Vance met with her and had an official sit down. Then he went to the Vatican. And so there on Saturday, he's supposed to meet the Pope, and the Pope, who's recovering still for his pneumonia that had repercussions, he was meeting only with the number 2 at Vatican. Usually during Easter time, VP, at that time also President Biden, or at that point of time, Vice President Biden was there and meeting the Pope, and this is a common thing. So it's not something that is scheduled out of blue. JD Vance became a Catholic in 2019, so he did travel. First, he was meeting with the number 2, so the Catholic Church officials who have been sharply critical of his administration's policies in the first such in-person talks of the second Trump presidency did welcome him. And then it was reported that he's not going to meet with the Pope Francis. But then today, reportedly, and as you see here, this was a readout from the White House, but also pictures show that he did meet with Pope Francis. What was interesting is that normally there's a gift exchange, right? Normally the Vatican gifts the kids, right, that JD Vance brought his kids, like a basket with chocolates, and it's Easter, right? A celebration. They also give this tie, a Vatican tie, and so they brought gifts for JD Vance. Usually the guest is also bringing gifts that have a diplomatic value. JD Vance brought no gift, which was sort of a change in the tradition, if I may say so. Okay, so also Iran and United States agreed on Saturday. They're also meeting in Italy, which is unrelated to JD Vance's visit. They agreed to begin drawing up a framework for potential nuclear deal. Iran's foreign minister said after talks that U.S. official described as yielding very good progress. Now, are we probably going to get the deal that Trump got out of, right? I mean, let's call the thing a thing. He's blaming Biden, but in his first term, he actually got out of the deal that opened the way for Iran to acquire nuclear ability. Also, there are rumors, and I call it as rumors because we have to have proof from more than 2 sources in normal world of journalism. To say that something is a fact. So I will say this is a rumor that Iran is in talks with the UAE or Saudi Arabia to sell them nuclear weapons. So that would mean that Iran does have a nuclear weapon. Also, this weekend, Iran has met with the UN Grossi, who handles the nuclear activity and nuclear capabilities of countries and manages it, right? This is what UN Watchdog does. And they met with Iranian officials, right? So that means that there is something, well, whether they already have a nuclear weapon or they're on the way of acquiring it. Certainly, they did provide Russia with a lot of Shahed drones that Russia killed a lot of Ukrainians with, and in return, they got the intelligence needed to produce such weapons. Okay. Also, when back to the United States, so U.S. District Judge James Boasberg on Friday denied a request to block the Trump administration from deporting suspected Venezuelan gang members. Well, this is alleged gang members, right? New York Times I think it was New York Times, but correct me if I'm wrong, but a news agency had done a report where they said that 94% of people who were deported had no affiliation with such thing. So now, allegedly. Boasberg made the ruling at a hearing on Friday evening to weigh in the ACLU's request for an emergency order blocking the administration from deporting people under the Alien Enemies Act, the 1798 law. The U.S. military will also consolidate its presence in Syria over the coming weeks and months in a move that could reduce the number of troops it has in the country by half. Chief Pentagon spokesperson Sean Parnell said on Friday. Now, they started with 2,000. Now it's less than 1,000. What does happen is, and I explained it in the previous live stream, so go back. It's literally last week. I showed you maps. I explained why it is benefiting Russia, because Russia has literally lost their influence, specifically access to their maritime and air force bases in Syria that are crucial for them to maintain their access to trade with Africa, but also to provide enough support to their Wagner group in Africa that is trading there and that is sort of running the show, so to speak. So U.S. withdrawing just gives, again, another ability to Russia to come back in power and use and utilize those bases. Also, wherever U.S. leaves, China directly steps in. So we're not providing aid through USAID or USAID, and China steps in and provides that aid. We are withdrawing from some agreements, trade agreements. China steps in. So China did reportedly even recruit Vatican to work on a deal with EU that would allow EU and China to increase their trade abilities so much so that they would not need to make a deal with the United States. So it is, again, it was reported by Fox News even today. But also you have to think then, what was the purpose of Giorgia Meloni coming to the Oval Office and really reaching up deep with Trump, right? We're going to make West great again, blah, blah, blah. Here's a clip. I actually have it, so you get the flavor.
Go ahead. Presidente Meloni, avete discusso di Cina e della possibilità che Europa ponga dei dazi, diciamo, sulla Cina. Mr. President, are you sure about the definition of parasite of European? Would you say again that European parasite?
It's never said.
Would you say again that
European?
Have you ever said that Europeans are parasites?
Yeah.
Have you seen it?
No, I haven't said. I don't
He
know what
didn't say.
He actually did say that, and this comes from the Signal chat that Hegseth or Waltz invited people in, and Hegseth discussed Europe, that they're suckers and they're parasites. And then Trump, in defense of Hegseth, said that Europeans were parasites. But again, Meloni was defending him, even to her own Italian journalists. So what was the reason for her to come in and be very friendly with Trump? It could be two things. It could be gaslighting while Europe does their own thing, and EU is part of course, Italy is part of the EU and NATO and can, wish for more, but there are receivers, right? In the European Union, you have countries that are givers and that are receivers. And that's why UK was, thinking or economically explaining themselves Brexit, which then turned out to be quite the opposite. But essentially, there are countries like Germany and France that are feeding countries like Italy and Spain and Slovakia in the Eastern European bloc, right? To put the economy on one level where, labor can move and whatnot, right? So at that point, we have to see. Will Italy be part of the coalition of the willing? Will they step out and rather side with US and start prohibiting NATO and EU from helping Ukraine? Remains to be seen. She said that she wants to help Ukraine or continue helping Ukraine. So we'll have to see what actually will be the fact here. But it is interesting that China gained influence through this entire, shit show that is happening around the tariffs. And the world is also reacting to the tariffs. And here I want you to watch a video by a Japanese leader who was very frank. And by the way, yes, this video, it says AI, people used to translate from Japanese into English, because certainly he was speaking Japanese in their What I See Parliament. They use AI to translate it. I did double check with somebody who does speak Japanese, and they said this is the original video in Japanese. This is the video AI translated into English, and this is almost word for word. It's literally what he said, which is quite alarming for Japan to be so outspoken. So let's check out that video for, well, how long is the video? It's 3 minutes, 24 seconds. Let's check it out for a couple of minutes.
What the United States is saying is completely unreasonable. Their logic is all over the place, and there's no consistency at all. However, when Japan negotiates with what they are saying, to be frank, it's akin to being extorted by a delinquent. If Japan gives in, thinking it's a negotiation or a deal, and compromises on its position, it sets a bad precedent as a customary practice. If you give money to someone extorting you, they'll just come back to extort you again. In the first place, even their equations are completely nonsensical. I wasn't good at math either, but if that equation appeared in a math test, it would definitely score 0. That's why, even though Minister Akazawa is serious and capable, there's a concern about whether it's okay for a serious person to handle this. Since they're not a straightforward opponent, they won't listen to straightforward reasoning. Even though all options were mentioned, you must never show compassion to an opponent who isn't straightforward. If you ease up on them, it will set a bad example.
And so he continued. Then I posted the full video on Blue Sky, but also on YouTube. So while you watch it here, subscribe and you can check all the clips there. So very straightforward, very frank, which is very much unusual for Asia, right? You have to understand the culture. And also what I want you to pay attention to, we're going to talk about China by the end. I'm going to guide you through. But Xi, right? President Xi has not addressed the tariffs personally. He has not called President Trump personally. He has not voiced his opinion at all. Why? And I was attending a meeting by the foreign press, and there was the senior fellow at the Council on Foreign Affairs that I am honored to report on and be part of as media person, who shared the take on it, right? She's Chinese and professor. And she said, look, you have to understand the cultural aspect here very heavily. And the fact that she has not voiced his opinion on tariffs means that he does not let the tariff issue come to the highest level of leadership. So whoever calls the White House or Trump or whatnot are what? Foreign affairs offices, the embassy, the Chinese embassy in the US. So they handle it on a very mid-level of diplomacy. It doesn't go to Xi or number 2, right? So at that point, when Trump says, we're talking and Xi this, Xi that, no, it's not reaching the highest level. Because why? They are maintaining their freedom to announce. So when she comes somewhere, there should be an announcement. If she calls Trump, there should be a result. They're not going to just be talking. That's a dictator. I'm not a fan of China. This is a dictatorship. China helps Russia. And I guide you through with proof. And they're preparing to take over Taiwan. But what they are a dictatorship. They have strategy, they have ideology, and they have rules. And they're not effing around. And I've been posting the videos that they release, the AI videos. And as much as fun, those videos are fun to watch, and they're trolling Vance. And we got, 3.5 million views on Instagram and all that kind of stuff. The point here is we have to understand that one thing is it's entertaining, yes, but it's full-blown propaganda machine, and it's anti-United States. They're seeing United States as a clown car full of clowns that you cannot deal with. And they troll United States. And why? Because they use this in their negotiations with the EU, with Saudi Arabia, with Canada. They use it to say, look, this is a clown car. You can't deal with them. Deal with us. And people will. Although it is a dictatorship, although they are trying to or working on taking over Taiwan, they will, because everybody needs to survive. We're going to talk about Canada, and Gary from Canada commented, right? Hey, Gary says, I'm so embarrassed for North America, Canada, and Mexico. Welcome you. The states are having a problem right now. Gary from Canada. Thank you, Gary. And I'm going to talk about Canada and the election and the Liberal plan that Prime Minister Carney laid out yesterday. So I have the details for you guys. And if you're not from Canada, it's very interesting because it's an actual leader with knowledge speaking. How refreshing. So now let's move on. Let's talk about some weekly recap. First US, then we're going to go into Canada. Then I have 3 interesting clips for you, and then we're done. So deportations. The main case is we are talking about, right, the Democratic world calls him Maryland man, and then the MAGA world calls him wife beater and terrorist and MS-13 member who was deported to El Salvador. What we need to understand is that even the White House has said that this was a clerical mistake that led to him being deported to El Salvador. Then the courts have looked into it. Then the judge ordered the White House federal judge ordered the White House to facilitate return, because anybody should have availability to a process that would decide, legal process that would lead to a decision whether he can stay or not. Also, deportation does not mean you are deported to a high security prison. It's sort of like a gulag in a warmer weather. It doesn't mean deportation. So, and that prison, CCOT it's called, it has a lot of history. If you Google it, if you read about it, they should have only 300, they should have 11, no, I'm not going to lie about numbers, but they should have 1/3 of people that they holding now actually there, since they don't have much beds or bedding. So for this, for them to have 11,000 people, I think at this point are there, it's illegal, it's inhumane. What do they do with them? How do they get rid of them? Do they get rid of them? When El Salvador's dictator, he claims that he is the coolest dictator. He posts this on Twitter shitter. And when he was at the Oval Office, we've heard this conversation with President Trump, where the latter asked him to build 5 more prisons because we have a lot of people to deport. But at this point, there are far more people there, reportedly, than they should be able to even hold. So what do they do with them? And so the big question was, is this guy even alive? And so then the senator from Maryland, Van Hollen, he did travel to El Salvador, which was really a refreshing change, right? When somebody picks up their butt and does something and physically goes someplace and figures it out. And then our question was, so all people, tried to figure out, is he alive? And though he was not, first he spoke with the vice president of El Salvador. They said they will not facilitate the return of him. And even though actually it's U.S. or United States part to facilitate the return. At the Oval Office, Trump said this is Bukele's decision. Bukele said, I have no authority. And so we're back to square zero. But he did meet with him. The senator did meet with him, which led to this photo, right? He said that, I said my main goal of this trip was to meet with Kilmar. Tonight, I had that chance. I had called his wife, Jennifer, to pass along message of love. I look forward to providing a full update upon my return, which led to this doodle-doo by the White House, where they said senator meets with not wrongly deported Maryland man, which was said by the New York Times. They said this was MS-13 gang member in El Salvador who will never come back. I think our White House accounts are run by teenagers who certainly know how to go viral. But this is a high stakes diplomacy here. Not sure what we're doing. Ultimately, before he left, he did inform everybody that Kilmar Abrego Garcia is no longer at CCOT and has been moved to another detention center where conditions are better, but still has no communication with outside world, and most importantly, no communication with any lawyers, which again, if you are granted due process, which he should be, that would be one step forward to figure out his case. And so why is this case important? Because in the United States, we have the Constitution, we have the amendments, but we also have case law, which makes our law and order current, right? We have cases, the cases are leading to a decision is applied to more cases. So if this is allowed here, this will open an entire, way for the White House to handle and mishandle deportation cases. Meanwhile, Supreme Court will be hearing, the debate or whatever Trump's White House wants to present to sort of withdraw this ability to have the birthright to citizenship. And so can they do it in retrospect? Who knows? But if this case goes through where somebody can be physically taken away from United States without any due process, deported to a gulag, facing death, let's call a thing, with no communication with outside world, where United States says, well, this is under jurisdiction of El Salvador, and El Salvador says, no, we don't know anything about it. This is just a business. We get paid to do this. Just remember one thing, that Auschwitz is actually in Poland. And Germany did that. And you utilize other countries that can facilitate your goals. What are the goals? We all understand, right? Let's hope we're all wrong. Every day I wake up thinking and hoping and praying that I'm goddamn wrong. But it's great to see that Senator Van Hollen actually did something, figured it out, flew there, and showed action. Was good. Now, what was not good, and this is something that I want to show, which is really stupid, honestly. Easter night, right? So last night in Europe, this was already morning, and so they're holding, Easter prayer and whatnot, right? Fox News. First, on the left, they're showing Holy Saturday night, right? The Easter service in Moscow, right? That's where the girl is. Easter service in Moscow that is attended by President Putin. So Fox News is live streaming the service from Moscow. How is that in the interest of United States people, right? How? To make the propaganda idea is to show Russians as our friends. They're not enemies. Look, they're praying to the same God. They're praying the same prayers. Look at this. They're having liturgy. So this is Moscow. Then on the right lower end, they say St. Peter's Basilica in Vatican City because J.D. Vance was there. And then on upper end, they say Easter service in Kiev, Russia. Excuse you? Now, for this type of shit, you should be losing your broadcast license. There's a whole war going on. So we're not writing Kiev, Russia. There's people dying every day and every night. So it doesn't say Kiev, Russia. Who put that? Who allowed that to stay? Here's a good question. Meanwhile, President Trump and Vice President Musk, or whoever he is, they were in Trump's resort in Virginia, playing golf or whatever Musk is doing here, downloading some signal from Starlink or whatever, rebooting. That's how they were spending their Easter. And then today, Trump waved to the crowd on Easter, did not wish us anything, but here's the video. I like the music. It's very interesting. And then the White House released this video by White House spokesperson Speaker Carolyn Levitt, who spoke about Christianity.
I certainly believe in spiritual warfare, and I think I saw it firsthand, especially throughout the campaign trail with President Trump. And I think there certainly were evil forces, and I think that the president was saved by the grace of God on July 13th in Butler, Pennsylvania, and he's in this moment for a reason. We're all here for a reason, and I think it's...
Then on Friday, Dr. Oz was sworn in as the next head of, Medicare and Medicaid. And he came up swinging with a big message on our patriotic duty, that if you missed that clip, you would not guess what your patriotic duty is. Take a look.
And it is your patriotic duty, I'll say it again, the patriotic duty of all Americans to take care of themselves, because it's important for serving in the military, but it's also important because healthy people don't consume healthcare resources. The best way to reduce drug spending is to use less drugs because you don't need them because you're healthy. And it feels a lot better as well.
It's your patriotic duty to be healthy so it costs us less. Have he heard, as a doctor, Oz, has he heard anything about preventative care, and that we kind of have appointments with doctors every few months and so, and you do colonoscopies every few years, and right? And also, what if you have a serious illness? Is that your fault now? You're not fulfilling your patriotic duty? This meeting was followed by his granddaughter fainting and vomiting all over the Oval Office, reportedly. We have a clip of her falling. She's doing well. Thank God. There's nothing, we should not be saying anything negative about a child, but it is what it is. Now, what I also wanted to share is that very late night on Friday, which was like 1:30 a.m. Eastern, Saturday, the Supreme Court temporarily barred the Trump administration from deporting a group of Venezuelan migrants it accused of being gang members under a rarely used wartime law. The decision was 5-2. Here's a photo of the decision. Let me pull this up. Where do I have it? Here we go. So as you see here, this happened on Saturday the 19th, and this was the latest decision coming from Supreme Court. And Justice Thomas and Justice Alito dissent from the court order. Statement from Justice Alito is to follow. On brand again, but we do have this order. Will Trump White House violate it yet again, ignore it, or follow? We have to see. We have not heard reports of people being deported, but maybe we'll get a new video on Monday on social media. So we'll have to see. Now, as to U.S., Russia, Ukraine thing, and 7-2. Thank you, Edward. Thank you so much. Yes, 9 Supreme Court justices, 7-2. Thank you. I appreciate you. Thank you for correcting me. Madap Max says, hello, nice to meet you. Just saw reports from your Blue Sky and yours live now, listening in. Hey, welcome. Thank you. Thank you so much for tuning in. Thank you for joining. Appreciate you. Josh says, make America great again, more like make America alone again. Absolutely. Right. And is alone great? Sometimes being single is great, but not when you're a country and you need to trade because you have more services than products. And that's what United States has. If we don't have trade deficit, we are trading, we're selling more services than we are selling products. We buy a lot of products, we sell a lot of services. This is our balance, right? But the Trump White House completely ignores the services where we do have surplus in trade and only focuses on products. So make America great again, alone again, comes back to like 1800s, where we're going to be producing everything. Hence the AI produced Chinese troll videos of Trump and Vance and Musk working in the factory. So now I do have a video on that in a second, and you will enjoy it. I promise you. Now, as to US, Russia, Ukraine, the latest. Okay, so first things first, US and Ukraine have signed a memorandum on that minerals deal. don't be too scared. It doesn't mean that Ukraine folded or anything. This is a memorandum. You're not going to read it. It's very tiny. But if you read the whole thing, all that it says is that we will be working on a deal, on a potential deal. That's it. That's what they signed for. Bessent, our Secretary of Treasury, Bessent signed it, and Bessent, whatever his name is, and his equivalent in Ukraine. So they say, okay, we're going to be working on the deal. There is no thing that there has to be a deal or by when the deal should be or how the deal will be. And the deal itself is a one-page document where it says that U.S. will own everything plus 4%. First they said it's $300 billion worth of the help that U.S. sent. Never happened. Now they said it's $100 billion. Closer to the truth, but not true either, because we're ignoring then the fact that U.S. Allocated money to buy older equipment from itself to sell, to give to Ukraine, and use the money allocated to buy new equipment, hence replenishing its stockpiles. So at this point, yes, there was direct aid too, but the majority went on ultimately replenishing Pentagon, which is, again, if you are here from the very beginning, when I said that people are complaining about Biden, this is something where I'm a Ukrainian-born U.S. citizen. So it's a difficult pill to swallow, right? This was very smartly done by the Biden White House, right? It gave U.S. time to produce more, to produce new equipment. It literally gave also the funds to do so while giving the old stuff to Ukraine, also saving on maintenance fees. So it gave EU time to wake up and detach themselves, their dependence on Russia, gas-wise. So it gives everybody time. Is it fair to Ukrainians? No, because Ukrainians were getting this aid in this drip-drop manner, which prohibited them to kick out Russia or to dominate on the battlefield. So for Ukrainians, it's difficult. And they're complaining about Biden. And they were hoping for Trump. Hence, they were hoping for Trump. And now it's even worse, right? So will I complain about Biden? He did what's in best interest for America, right? And so one might say America first. That's what happened here. Now, so memorandum happened. Trump said, we expect to sign a minerals deal on Thursday. We'll see if they live up to it. So you do believe me? Here's a video of him saying.
Well, we have a minerals deal, which I guess is going to be signed on Thursday, Scott, next Thursday, soon. And I assume they're going to live up to the deal, so we'll see. But we have a deal on that. No, I have no comment on that. I have no idea. That's his statement, not mine.
Edward, thank you so much. Yes, that's exactly what I intended to say. You said it better. Okay, so he says deal on Thursday. Now, according to Ukrainian forces, it is physically impossible to meet that deadline. Now, Secretary of State Rubio said that U.S. will abandon efforts to end the war in Ukraine if meaningful progress cannot be brokered in the next few days. So he was in Paris, he was meeting with the French team, he was meeting with the Brits, understood that he cannot pursue that or persuade them to poop on Ukraine and just side with Russia and dismantle all the sanctions on Russia and just, unite. So then this new rhetoric is that he says, quote, if it is not possible to end the war in Ukraine, we need to move on. The U.S. has supported Ukraine for 3 years, but now we reached a point where U.S. needs to focus on something else. Glorious. Also, the U.S. is not yet ready to publicly discuss the issue of Ukraine's security guarantees. So you want to make money on that minerals deal, but then you not provide security guarantees. So next step would be if Ukraine were to sign, you would say, oh, but this is not secure to even dig up those minerals. So then Russia could step in and buy you out of that minerals deal and hence own Ukraine. I said that last week in detail, so you can watch it. Madap says, from fixing in 24 hours to few weeks, month, abort, great. Exactly. Exactly. That was my whole point in the newsletter. I said, and if you're not subscribed, because you just mentioned, you see the newsletter here. Where is it? Here, newsletter, honestnetwork.newsletter, .com/newsletter. It's free. It's Monday through Friday, and then Canada edition on Saturday, where I put out all the actual news. And there was exactly what I questioned. I think it was on Thursday or Friday where I said, look, you did all of that to get nothing from Russia? Or was that maybe even the point, to lift sanctions, open embassies, align with Russia? Maybe that was the goal. And who knows who got something from it? Officially, there was nothing. But what if unofficially, through maybe a crypto fund, there was something? Yeah. So the U.S. peace plan reportedly includes easing sanctions against Russia, Bloomberg says. According to Bloomberg, U.S. officials presented allies in Paris with a proposal for peace agreement between Russia and Ukraine. The plan outlines conditions to end hostilities and suggests sanctions on Moscow could be relaxed if a long-term ceasefire is upheld. Don't hold your breath. This initiative reportedly followed Secretary Rubio's remarks about the administration's willingness to walk away from the peace efforts. The proposal would effectively freeze the conflict, leaving Russian-occupied Ukrainian territories under Moscow's control. Ukraine's NATO aspirations would be taken off the table. And here's Rubio saying all that.
I always remind everybody that part of the sanctions against Russia, many of them, are European sanctions that we can't lift if that's were ever to be part of a deal. So they're going to have to be involved no matter what. It's their continent. This is happening on the continent of Europe. And so obviously European powers will care deeply about what happens. So they have a stake in this, and we recognize it. And they, but in the end, I think we all want the same thing. I think from the U.S. perspective.
I don't think we all want the same thing, Marco. I highly doubt it. Do you want Ukraine to be sovereign and Russia to withdraw? Because that's kind of what we want. So, Friday then, given that on Thursday, President Trump sat with Prime Minister Meloni at the Oval Office and said that the deal is happening, right? You just heard it. And he also said that they're working on ceasefire. And reportedly, quote, it was, U.S. is very close to a ceasefire deal with Russia. Then on Friday, Russia's envoy to UN, Nebenzia, who has been that envoy for tens of years, called ceasefire plans unrealistic. Take a look.
Я не знаю, насколько мы близки к прекращению огня. Это большой вопрос для меня лично, потому что, как я уже сказал, у нас была попытка ограниченного прекращения огня в отношении энергетической инфраструктуры, которая не соблюдалась украинской стороной. Так что в этих обстоятельствах говорить о прекращении огня просто нереально на данном этапе и сегодня.
Simply unrealistic. Okay, so President of the United States gets fact-checked by the envoy, right? You see the point here? Russia's envoy to UN and whatever are speaking on this. In China, foreign ministry is speaking on trade. Xi is not talking about it. Putin is not talking about it. See the level of negotiations type of thing. Then on Good Friday, Russia launched missile and drone strikes across multiple regions in Ukraine. In Sumy, a bread factory was destroyed. The owner who came to pick up Easter bread was killed. In Dnipro, a fitness center, private home, hotel, and office were all hit. And in Sumy, this was incredible. Devastating death. Kids included, a lot of people who are injured. It's a massacre, right? Then they're shooting 3 ballistic missiles that they use for Sumy, same type of missiles they're shooting, or they're targeting then Kharkiv with. And those ballistic missiles are carrying also like pieces, right? And shrapnel that kills more people, right? Once the bomb explodes. So, or the missile explodes. incredible. It's just a massacre directed on civilians or at civilians. It has nothing to do with targeting NATO facilities that Russia claims were in the middle of Sumy, which is like UNESCO protected historic district where people were standing in line to enter the church on Good Friday. But they said the NATO people were meeting there. Absolutely not true. And then on Saturday, Putin announced a ceasefire over Easter, right? I don't want to show you the video. I don't want to waste your goddamn time. Because it's all BS. Why do we know that? It's because President Zelensky, literally a few minutes before I went live, put out this statement, which I want to read to you, and I have it here. So yeah, so we can all see. Now, a report by Commander-in-Chief Syrskyi as of 8 p.m. on Easter Day. As of this hour, since the beginning of the day, the Russian army has violated Putin's ceasefire more than 2,000 times. There have already been 67 Russian assaults against our positions across various directions, with the highest number in the Pokrovsk region. There were a total of 1,355 cases of Russian shelling, 713 of which involved heavy weaponry. The Russians also used FPVs 673 times. In practice, across all main frontline directions, Russia has failed to uphold its own promise of ceasefire, and almost an entire day wasn't enough for Russia to respond to our Ukrainian proposal for a full ceasefire starting now from Easter and lasting 30 days. However, there were no air raid alerts today. Hence, this is a format of ceasefire that has been achieved on that, and that is the easiest to extend. Ukraine proposes to cease any strikes using long-range drones and missiles on civilian infrastructure for a period of at least 30 days, with the possibility of extension. If Russia does not agree to such a step, it will be proof that it intends to continue doing only those things which destroy human lives and prolong the war. So essentially, and this is what we know from my family's family members, friends that are currently in Kharkiv, Ukraine, and also other cities, where they say, well, there were no missiles today, but now they're waiting. It's like New Year's. They're waiting till midnight to see if more will be coming, and they're very anxious about it. And so, yeah, it was good for one night. Maybe Russia needed to replenish their stockpiles. Who knows what the point was? But that is straight from Zelensky. Now, as of April 17th, there's a poll that was run. Americans are now split on whether Russia is an enemy. As President Donald Trump presses for a deal to end Russia's war in Ukraine, attitudes among Americans, especially Republicans, are shifting. And this is, the idea with this, right? We're showing Russian spraying. We're calling Kiev Russia. Incredible, right? Do you recall any Easter Eve or Easter, service that was, live from Moscow shown to people in America? I don't recall that. Why are we doing that now? During the war. Okay, but there were some good news. And so 277 POWs, so prisoners of war, Ukrainian heroes, were returned to Ukraine on Friday. And this is a snapshot that I took from a video. This was facilitated by UAE, and this happened on Friday, which was great news. As to Russia, Russia removed the Taliban from its list of terrorist organizations. Here you see their Foreign Minister Lavrov and Taliban equivalent. They announced that Taliban can now legally operate within Russia. And now, give it a few weeks and Taliban fighters may be fighting shoulder to shoulder with Russian and North Korean troops in Sumy or Donetsk, right? That's the next thing to come. Now, on the other hand, Russia is working overtime to unite with the United States and convince the United States to unite against Eurofascism. And this article is fed to Russian citizens, but also worldwide, by their international, sort of the equivalent of our FBI, right? So you see here, they're portraying Ursula von der Leyen, the president of EU Commission, as Eurofascist, right? And they say Eurofascism, just like 80 years ago, is a common enemy of Moscow and Washington. So you see where it's going, right? Also, China is sending troops to Ukraine to prepare for an attack in Taiwan. The Hill reported that. Experts say that Chinese forces fighting alongside Russia are gaining combat experience to be used in a future invasion of Taiwan. Some predict an assault could come within the next 6 months. Quote, the Communist Party is seeking first-hand battlefield experience in Ukraine to prepare the People's Liberation Army for future wars. For the PLA, the battlefield in Ukraine is the most vivid and brutal example of revolutionary confrontation between unmanned weapons and the electronic warfare systems used against them. So that explains why Zelensky have been showing, Chinese army members surrendering and talking about it. It could be directed straight from Xi Jinping, or it could be, some organizations such as Wagner, right, running this. And so this is unofficially official type of thing. So China keeps steady on tariffs, right? And also, aside from trolling, Chinese citizens now started posting their opinions on what's the problem in US is. And this is a clip, again, we're not supporting Chinese dictatorship and their Communist Party. But this gentleman here actually has a point. Let's see if you do agree with me. He points out what, in his opinion, is the problem with the United States. Take a look.
They rob you blind and you thank them for it. That's a tragedy. That's a scam. That's why I'm saying this right now. Americans, you don't need a tariff. You need a revolution. For decades, your government and oligarchs only ship your job to China, not for diplomacy, not for peace, but to exploit cheap laborers. And in the process, they hollowed out your middle class, crushed your working class, and told you to be proud while they sold your future for profit. And yes, China made money, but we used it to build roads, lift millions out of poverty, fund healthcare, raise living standard. We reinvested in our people. My family also benefited from it. What did your oligarchs do? They bought yachts, private jets, and mansions with golf course driveways. They manipulate the market, dodged tax, and poured billions into endless wars. And you get stagnant wages, crippling healthcare cost, cheap dopamine, debt, and flagged wave property made in China, while they pick your pocket. For 40 years, both China and the United States benefit from the trade, the manufacturing, but only one of us use that wealth to build. This isn't China's fault. This is yours. You let this happen. You let the oligarchs feed you lies, while they made you fat, poor, and addicted. Now they blame China for mess they made. I don't think so. I don't think you need another tariff. You need to wake up. You need to take your country back. I think you need a revolution.
Let's dissect it. He does have a point. A revolution in the United States would first benefit China, but he does have a point. Let's call a thing a thing. He just described the process that we're not willingly talking about. And it's take it at face value. Madep says sarcasm can be bitter to swallow, but he's right. Even I would not want to live in China. Exactly. I'm not supporting Chinese propaganda. But and that's where we started this whole thing today, where I said in today's world, we cannot see things as black and white. Just because I don't like the way you look or your accent or whatever, I hate everything you say, right? If we start with this as a fundamental basis, then there is no way to go. Then we are separated. Then everybody is only living in their tiny little bubble where they think that they rule the world, right? And they're fighting other person's bubble. But there are also boundaries, right? One thing is to listen when somebody says, and you're like, the guy from Japan made sense. this gentleman here from Russia, from China, made sense, right? But we also have to understand that China has its interests. It's a dictatorship. It's Communist parties running all of it. We have to understand what the what the deal is. But the boundaries are, for instance, it's not. Maybe because I'm Ukrainian-born U.S. citizen again, but in my humble opinion, there is no way to explain that lifting sanctions on Russia, opening embassies, starting the trade with Russia would be somehow economically profitable. This country has completely reshifted their economy, and it's only dependent on war. And only a 10-year-old maybe will not understand that Russia will not cease fire, because if they do so, their economy will fall apart. I wrote an article in the newsletter last week where, it just shows how far the unpaid wages go in Russia, right? It was about, let's say, for example, $1 million in January, then it's 5 million in February, and it just sums it up, because they're only people and only companies and organizations that benefit the war make money. Everybody else does not. So in that sense, lifting sanctions will just, boost Russia's economy, bring it back alive. Is it in our interest? How is that America first? And I will gladly agree with somebody. So I will comprehend and say, hey, you know what? You got a point. But at this time, this guy had a point. So President Trump did not beat himself, though, but he does have the lowest approval point among all the presidents or recent presidents. Here you see average for presidents at this time to have approval is 59%. Trump in 2017 had 41%, and now he has 45%. And you see JFK had 74, Dwight Eisenhower 71, Jimmy Carter, Barack Obama, all Reagan, Bush, both Bushes, Joe Biden, Bill Clinton were doing better at this time. And don't forget, with Joe Biden in 2021, it was during COVID, when we're all dependent on these payouts, right? 56%. So he came in the worst time, and he left us with something really stable and really good when it comes to our economy. Here it is, Biden-Harris administration economy, which just speaks for itself. Now, what's next? Tomorrow is the egg roll at the White House, which is very much monetized. The events are like the book reading is sponsored by Amazon, and the photos are sponsored by Meta, and it's all branded, and and also the National Association for Farmers has donated 30,000 eggs. At this price, I think if they calculated $4.99 for a dozen of eggs that is available, sort of an average price nationwide, it would cost 17,000 and some for this type of donation. But also hard-boiled eggs, and they're gonna roll it on the grass. Usually it was wooden, but anyway, they're gonna be hiding them. They're gonna be decorating with them, and hard-boiled eggs all over the place with children. Now, if you missed the visual of Trump riding the White House egg roll, here's a not so recent clip. Take a look.
Thank the White House Historical Association and all of the people that work so hard with Melania, with everybody, to keep this incredible house or building or whatever you want to call it, because there really is no name for it. It is special. And we keep it in tip-top shape. We call it sometimes tippy-top shape. And it's a great, great place.
We keep the country in a tippy-top shape. Also, don't forget how Trump deals with children. Happy Hubba Bubba Easter. Now, let's talk about Canada. So in Canada, the debates happened this week. And on the 16th was the debate in French. On the 17th was the debate in English. I shared it yesterday in our Canada weekly recap. Please go and read it. Even if you're not from Canada, it's it's useful to read. Again, to put it in short sort of description, my takeaway was that Mark Carney knows what he's doing. He's knowledgeable, he is experienced, he is calm, cool, collected. And then you have this Pierre Poilievre, who is Mike Johnson with JD Vance's energy. That's sort of the level, and he's reciting Trump's ideas, right? Canada first, and deportation's great, and ban abortion great, and stop immigration great, and all that kind of stuff. That's my humble opinion. I'm not Canadian, but I see that if this guy were to be elected, God forbid, then the first 51st state idea is not as delusional. So please vote, okay? Now, one clip that went viral is when Pierre Poilievre, alike President Trump, did not agree to pass the security check. And so when Mark Carney, now Prime Minister Mark Carney, asked him about it, he talked about being gagged, which sounded kind of weird. And here's the reaction of Carney, which made this clip go viral.
Secret security clearance briefings that I would be gagged under the security law and I could be prosecuted.
People heard it as gay. But what I wanted to show is that despite one guy being sort of a Maple MAGA guy, another being great leader that really deserves to lead now, who, if you don't know what he did before, he pretty much handled the Brexit crisis in Great Britain. He also guided Canada in 2008 during the financial crisis. And so there's a great interview with him and Professor Galloway, right? Which I, again, recommended yesterday in the news recap, the Canada edition, which is a great interview. And it's very educational when it comes to economy and trade and those tariffs as well. So even if you're not Canadian, I truly encourage you to watch. It's very good. But this clip, which made for me a huge difference between the Canadian debates and the US debates. Take a look. This would happen after the debates. They're talking to each other. It's a different structure in Canada, right? There's a parliament, you have different parties, they will have to work with each other regardless of the outcome, who will be then the prime minister. The party leaders will not go anywhere away, but this is still democracy. This is still decent. They're talking to each other, they're shaking hands. It's not this evil sort of... Remember the debate between Donald Trump and Hillary Clinton when he was towering behind her and going boo? Remember him screaming at Biden? Remember him screaming at Kamala Harris and her literally handling him, which was really underreported and underappreciated by the media, I think, which made a big difference. So, but then yesterday, pay attention what to start a sentence with, almost like I think, but mostly I believe, or Trump says, Paula White claims Trump is a godsend. Yeah. There was a whole thing. They held an Easter prayer at the White House, which was, I'm receiving press pool things. I'm not in press pool anymore, but I'm receiving their reports. And since the press pool is now run only by MAGA, essentially MAGA podcasters, it was like our leaders entering the room. Our leaders praised. The angel is praised to that stepped between our leader and his, not the leader, our leader's ear and the bullet, and all this, like, and Paula White was speaking out there, and this entire White House religious, whatever community, whatever they have there. And Paula White is actually has an official position at the White House. She's head of religious summit. I don't know what it is, but anyway, horrible. So the debates did happen. And then what I want to talk about then, the Liberal Party with the leader Mark Carney yesterday laid out and unveiled their platform. And so Mark Carney, along with other party leaders, revealed the game plan for leading the nation if elected for the next term. Now, his plan is comprehensive, but it's based on 4 core pillars, which are, connected to what US is doing to Canada first and foremost, but to the world itself. And so those core pillars are unite, secure, protect, and build. And so at his heart, the platform aims to stand firm against Trump's tariffs, create new jobs, cut tax for middle class, and build the fastest growing community economy in G7. And G7, by the way, this year is headlined by Canada. Canada is leading all the meetings and organizing meetings and whatnot, right? So this clip here delivers the bottom line of the entire message. I posted it on our network, on YouTube. 10 minutes is the entire, if you cut out the exact description of those 4 pillars. So you can go watch it, but this clip sort of delivers the headline or the punchline.
This is what it means to be Canada strong. What President Trump threatens us is to take away $125 billion. What we can create is $900 billion by ourselves. That is $20,000 on net for every single Canadian in 5 years.
Is an economist, guy, so he's not going for good oaks. Now, Carney's 130 billion vision, right? It's a big spending, bigger promises. So this Unite, Secure, Protect, Build features 130 billion in new spending over the next 4 years. Now, the key commitments include defense, $18 billion plus to exceed NATO targets by 2030 with investments in Canadian-made aircraft, submarines, and icebreakers. And few live streams back, I explained to you the deal with icebreakers, right? Based on our national security meeting with the Biden administration half a year ago. Okay, almost a year ago. It was in July. Now, also tariffs, $20 billion expected from retaliatory, can't pronounce this word, excuse me. Retaliation, right? Retaliatory tariffs against the U.S. to be invested in business sectors that are affected. Also deficits. Carney's plan boosts deficits until at least 2028-29, peaking at nearly 2% of GDP. Healthcare, $5.4 billion over 4 years for hospital builds and doctor training, plus credential recognition reforms. So what does it mean? Is when you do apply for a job or travel to work in different province, before you had to pass different tests, and there was more difficulty than Carney aims to make to be employed in other provinces, right? So economy, and the Liberals project $500 billion in economic value and a balanced operating budget by the end of the term. They did explain in detail how they plan to balance it. Meanwhile, Pierre Poilievre was tweeting yesterday that Liberals promise $130 billion in new spending and no timeline to balance the budget. And then he says, can you afford a Liberal government promising to spend $130 billion more than Justin Trudeau planned? This guy is same as Trump, still fighting Biden, even in today's Happy Easter message. This guy is fighting Trudeau. Do they see ghosts? The problem is, if we cut the chase, the problem is same as with Trump when he invested and designed his entire campaign, invested in it to go against Biden, and then Harris came in. Same happened here. This Poilievre based his campaign, all his rhetoric to run against Justin Trudeau, and then Carney came in, and he didn't have much time to go against him. And there's not much, honestly, to go against him, aside from him being an economist and also working for a period of time in the private sector. So, Also, Buy Canadian, prioritize domestic contractors and materials in federal infrastructure and defense procurement. In agriculture, protect supply, manage sectors, dairy, poultry, and eggs in trade talks. And we talked about it few live streams back, why those tariffs on dairy, for instance, exist. They're there to prevent Canadian market to be overloaded with American product that is quickly expiring, and that then would issue or cause more problems than importing less, right? Just we have free trade agreement, but certain sectors are protected, and also their quotas. And so if we were to talk about tariffs, let's say like on dairy that Trump says is over 400%, we have to see what the quotas are. Are quotas ever reached? Can this be negotiated, and not just put out numbers just to scare people, because it just sounds so provocative. Now, in the opposition, conservatives have not yet released a full platform, but Poilievre has teased his new Canada First economic action plan focused on inflation, energy independence, and cutting federal waste. Maybe they did release today. I will check myself on that, but up until this morning, there was nothing released. His campaign is bolstered by an endorsement from former PM Stephen Harper, who dismissed Carney's record and declared Poilievre is best choice. Carney's spending-heavy approach is being framed by conservatives as fiscally reckless, especially amid inflation and U.S. trade tensions. I think regardless whether liberal or conservative, Canada will have to spend because it can no longer rely defense-based, trade-based on America. So it will lead to expense anyway. Now, NDP, this is a new Democratic Party leader, Singh launched his own coasted platform focused on affordability, climate action, and housing. He's challenged Carney from the left, arguing that Liberal platform doesn't go far enough to tax the wealthy or confront corporate power. And now the Bloc of Quebecois, that's how you pronounce it, first to release a full platform, wants to make House of Commons votes mandatory on any future free trade deals, citing U.S. tariff threats as proof of vulnerability under federal leadership. And this would be really a huge change, right? And I wish, this is kind of what we actually have in the United States, that if president wants to or the administration wants to impose tariffs on the country, actually Congress has to vote on it. But the way Trump positioned and shaped it is that it's all connected to national security. Hence, he's mentioning fentanyl everywhere he goes, because that is the only reason to allow him to impose those tariffs. So now, also in other news, one more clip where Carney, Prime Minister Carney, saw a guy or heard the guy booing Trump, but then said, I will not step in and prohibit you from doing so. So it's like a cheeky moment. Take a look.
Just 4 days after I launched my candidacy in Edmonton, Donald Trump assumed the presidency of the United States. And ever since, it's true. Go for you. I'm not going to hold you back. Ever since.
Can you judge him? No. Okay, and so in other news, the California governor, Gavin Newsom, who now has a podcast where he listens to MAGA influencers on how to rebuild the Democratic Party, he faced now steep decline in tourism due to hostile rhetoric and policies of the current U.S. administration. I mean, who wants to be detained at the border, stripped naked, ask questions, you have your device confiscated, and you have to wait for a little ladder that, you can pick it up and all this. Who wants to do it? I mean, who likes this type of safari? So he released a video. It's a campaign aimed at Canadians to convince them to still travel to California. Take a look.
The Golden State and Canada have always shared so much in common. Sure, you know who's trying to stir things up back in D.C., but don't let that ruin your beach plans. California, it's the ultimate playground. 2,000 miles from Washington and a world away in mindset. From our iconic beaches and national parks to world-class wine, food, and outdoor adventure, there's something here for everyone. Last year, nearly 2 million Canadians visited California, because here in California, we've got plenty of sunshine and a whole lot of love for our neighbors up north.
Well, the majority of the response from Canadians was pound sand, to all the reasons that I listed earlier. Now, early voting is underway in Canada, so if you're a Canadian, please go and cast your vote. Everybody's vote counts, yours especially. This is a very serious election. Don't do the same mistake that we did here when we were very optimistic. Although when we look at the predictions, people are betting 4-1 that Carney will win. We had a lot of polls like this, although Polymarket is quite, is proven to be quite accurate. But again, let's not be too optimistic. Go and cast your vote. Also, if you're outside Canada, your deadline, I think, is April 22nd to at least register. So cast your vote or cast your vote. I featured all the links as to how to cast your vote if you're outside Canada, if you're inside, in our latest news recap, which I published yesterday. So you have all the links there. No excuse. Please do cast your vote. It is very important. Okay? Now, about casting votes, the Maple MAGA guy who really loves Donald Trump thought it was a great idea to just write him into the ballot when he was casting his vote earlier this week. Of course, this ballot is not going to count, and maybe this stupidity will save Canada from making maybe a bad choice. Take a look.
Well, that's how it's done. I'm just trying to make Canada great. So let's make it the 51st team. Big time.
Genius. That's an example when you have one lonely brain cell in your head and it's just like looking for community. Also, big update on our Made in Canada series. So to recap, Honest Network started during Black Lives Matter movement, where I did a 12-hour-long marathon to support Black-owned businesses, but also Black artists. And, we had speakers and politicians and artists and everybody for 12 hours. And we raised money for NAACP. Then I did the same thing for Stop Asian Hate, where we had 1.6 million live viewers with no commercials. And so now I'm starting series of live streams that will premiere on Sundays. I'm aiming to do it once a month. Maybe we will do often based on how many businesses we can achieve to promote Made in Canada products and also businesses and business owners. So I'm very excited to share that our first episode, and we have confirmed businesses. One is a very famous business from Montreal. It's a bakery serving up our gluten-free products, proving that delicious doesn't have to come with compromise. It's called Delicious Without Gluten. And also Maritime Tartan Company. It's a Nova Scotia-based lifestyle brand weaving tradition into every thread. Their tartans and apparel celebrate East Coast culture with unmistakable pride. And so they will be featured. I will share more details in the upcoming newsletters, but this will premiere next Sunday at 6 p.m. Eastern, 2 hours before I see you back live. Okay, so I really encourage you to watch. They're going to have QR codes. So if you're in Canada or outside of Canada, please go support, follow them on socials, buy their products, because I think let's put our mouth, let's put our words into action when it means to support Made in Canada or Canadian businesses who are unjustly hit by the tariffs. Okay, so this will be streamed on YouTube, Facebook, and X, and clips will be featured across all social media platforms. They will be then promoted for over a month, and then this is free for businesses. So if you want to be a part of it, whether, first episode, but then upcoming ones, it's on the website. So if you go to honestnetwork.com, you'll see this, and also on all the socials. You can just fill out the form. It's absolutely free, and apply to be featured. So this is something that I want to, to share our platform with and advertise these businesses. Okay. So Madam says, good for you, which your success in your efforts. I'll be asleep, unfortunately. Okay. But you can, watch it when it premieres afterwards, right? Because it's always available. Now, to finish, I want to show you 3 clips. And this is connected to what we're dealing with now. First clip is from Finland. Did you know that Finland has built enough bunkers, knowing their neighbor, Russia, to hide millions of people? I didn't know that, and maybe you didn't too. So take a look.
We have about 50,500 shelters for 4.8 million people. Finland is about 5.5 million people. So we have shelter places almost for every people who are in Finland. So the shelters can be like this, a sporting hall. They can be kinder playgrounds, even swimming halls. Most small civilian shelters are warehouses, but also cult clubs and so on. So it's not regulated what is the peacetime use for shelter. It's of course for rescue service.
Meanwhile, the United States, Zuckerberg is building his own bunker. And, based on what I saw in Ukraine, I remember in front of our apartment building, there was playground and with the kindergarten that I went to. And there was one sort of like an opening, and we knew it was a bunker. And it was never used, right? But we knew it always existed there. And then, when needed now, in times of war, it all has been rebuilt, right, and rejuvenated, so to speak. So it's very interesting how countries actually, prepare, and how we're doing. I don't know. Now, this one is oldie but a goodie. So take a look at this exchange.
A woman couldn't be president of the United States because she once a month sustained certain hormonal deficiencies.
Oh yeah, and that would be very dangerous.
Disqualify her country.
That's obviously absurd because we've had so many sick presidents and some of them were the best we had. It's not really a... And in any case, menstruation is not an illness. It's not even properly described as a hormonal insufficiency.
We've had presidents...
Can you really tell, David, whether I am or am not at this very moment?
It's a good point, which leads me to the current clip from European Parliament when, you will see why it matters to have women actually at leading positions. Take a look.
And of course, women must earn less than men because they are weaker, they are smaller, they are less intelligent, and they must earn less. That's all.
Gracias, Pérez.
Mire, señor diputado, según usted, según sus teorías, yo no tendría derecho de estar aquí como diputada. Y sé que le duele y le preocupa que hoy las mujeres podamos estar representando a los ciudadanos en igualdad de condiciones con usted. Yo aquí vengo a defender a las mujeres europeas de hombres como usted.
I came here to defend women from men like you. Rings the bell, right? Does ring the bell. And here's a clip from the MAGA folk that has a new idea what the J in Donald J. Trump stands for. Do I have this clip or did I cut it out? I think I did cut it out. Anyway, they say, well, I'm not stupid. I know that, or Trump is not stupid. J stands for genius. On this note, J stands for genius. Stay smart, read some books, and know how to spell. This is always a good idea. I'm currently learning French. It's very difficult because all the sounds are like, but then there's 1,000 letters to explain it. But anyway, my pronunciation is also heavily affected by me being fluent in German, which makes me pronounce every single thing. So, but I'm learning, so it's always good to learn something new. Yes, exactly. Okay, so on this note, we're done. Thank you so much for watching. Happy Easter, happy Passover, happy Sunday, whatever you're celebrating. Keep your head on a swivel. Always fact check what you're reading. I always tell you, you are in charge of your algorithms on social media. Block stuff, report it, tap 3 dots and say not interested. Don't overlook propaganda, so it targets you even more so, and then you're questioning what's true, what's not. Okay, so on this note, have a peaceful end of April for Canada. Please go vote. Next time we're going to see each other on the 26th. The official election day in Canada is on 28th. So on Sunday, we're going to speak, and please tune in at 6 p.m. next Sunday to Made in Canada to meet those wonderful business owners. They have very special stories that are very relatable, and they will truly appreciate you tuning in. Okay? All right. James says, thank you, James. Good night, everybody. Marie says, yes, hearts. Okay, good. Thank you so much for watching. Have a wonderful night and a peaceful start of the new week.